Coming from CNBC, Palantir's CARP bashes OpenAI Anthropic token model. Quote, something has gone completely wrong. Oh man, it's bringing a tear to my eye. It's making me such a happy geek right now. The claws are out, and I'm here for it. So one of the things I find really fascinating right now in 2026 is that in the AI world, kumbaya is over. And people are pulling out the knives. And as I've talked about many times, this is the technology industry that I know and have a passive-aggressive codependent relationship with. And so it's kind of curious here with Karp. So Karp is the CEO of Palantir, and basically what he's coming out and saying is that the pricing strategy for OpenAI and Anthropic with tokens is just a really bad idea. And I do think this is curious when we think about the artificial intelligence world and the whole idea of how do you sell AI, right? I've talked about this before when I had my business. Much of selling products to customers is simply about how you package the pricing that you give them, right? I've talked about this before, where you go in and let's say you're going to clean up the infrastructure for a small company, right? You're going to go in, they've got 20 computers, they've got a couple of servers, and so you sit there and you look at it and you're like, well, it's probably going to be 20 hours, let's say $100 an hour, so that'd be $2,000, right? I haven't audited all of your systems. Look, your systems might be up to date. Somebody may have actually clicked, the auto update on all of your systems. Maybe the antivirus is actually installed on them. So it might be as little as 10 hours just to verify everything is where it should be, plus do a couple of configurations on systems. On the other hand, I don't know, I might log into your systems and find out we have to do a lot of wipe and reloads. That's going to take a lot of time. So it might be 30 hours. So this should take you 20 hours. Be $2,000. It might be as little as 10 hours, cost you $1,000. But if things go a bit wonky, could be 30 hours and it'll be $3,000, right? Again, remember my business is 15 years ago, so prices. Anyways, the issue is if you bring that to the customer, they're going, because they don't like uncertainty. Customers do not like uncertainty. So one of the things that I learned a long time ago is you get rid of that uncertainty. You want to get rid of their uncertainty, but you also don't want to put liability on yourself. So what you do is you give them a fixed cost of $4,000. So it might take you 10 hours to fix all their problems. And then if it does, you made $400 an hour, right? Or it might take you, 20 hours, you made $200 an hour, or it may take you, 30 hours, whatever that comes out to, or it might actually take you 40 hours because sometimes you walk into a complete and utter disaster, and then that gets you the rate that you would normally get paid. And here's the weird part. You can charge 25% more to a customer and they will accept it because it is a fixed price, right? They are more comfortable paying for a fixed price than they are a variable price that might be lower. I've also talked about this before. If you go in there and you're selling a contract to do something, right? If you go in and you're selling a surveillance system or a telephone system or whatever else, right? Something that has hardware and a labor component to it, right? If you go in, let's say it's a $10,000 project, right? If you were being honest, if you were being transparent, let's not say honest, transparent, you would say labor is going to cost $7,500 and hardware is going to cost $2,500. And then your customer is going to give you so much crap. They are just going to be assholes. I don't know why it is. It's true. Dealt with it many, many, many times. When they look at your rate, your labor rate, which it might be really high, let's be honest, might be $500 an hour, might be $1,000 an hour. But look, you're delivering a product that they find valuable. But they see that. Why would I pay you at that hour, that rate? And you're like, look, how much is the project worth to you? Is the project worth $10,000, right? So what you do, because they don't want to pay a lot for labor, but weird, psychologically, they'll pay a lot for hardware. I don't know why this is. They will pay so much money for hardware and they want to pay no money for labor. So you go in, the exact same project, exact same $10,000 cost, right? You charge them $7,500 in components and $2,500 in parts, and they will sign the dotted line and not think twice about it. True stories, right? It's the optics of how you're, pricing whatever it is you're pricing to sell to customers. Believe me, I don't want it to be true. I'm just telling you how the world actually works. Don't scream at me about it. So I do think one of the interesting things that's going on right now with OpenAI and Anthropic is they are bringing in too many question marks about how much their services are going to cost companies when they go to use their services. So we've seen this with Uber. Like Uber came out and said they blew their entire token budget by April. So in 4 months, they spent as much as they thought they were going to spend in 12 months. One of the reasons that they were rolling back the budgets for tokens, that type of thing. We've seen Meta roll back access to a lot of models. They've been complaining about token costs. You've seen Microsoft rolling back. They've been complaining about token cost. One of the things you see with a lot of these companies is they're going in, and what's happening is they're realizing that not only are the tokens costing more than they expect, but they don't really understand where the limit might be. Right, because here's the thing, right? If let's say a company, they don't really know how much they're going to spend on tokens, so they go in, they spend, I don't know, $5,000 on tokens. They spent and they're like, oh my golly, CFO is like, oh my golly, we spent $5,000 on tokens. Well, here's the thing: is that a lot or is that a little? Really, again, optics. It's just story. It's just narrative, right? So if you can explain to the customer, like the most that you will ever spend in a year is, let's say, $20,000 on tokens, right? The max will be $20,000 on tokens. Then what the CFO can do, what other people can do, is they can start looking at the value for the tokens. What does $20,000? The worst case scenario, what do we get out of that? And what you might find out is, look, you spend $20,000 on tokens, but you increase sales by $5 million. Who gives a fuck, right? Maybe they figured that out. Maybe not. One of the big problems that companies like Uber's running into, we've heard this from Accenture, is that these companies are spending all this money on tokens. They don't know where the top might be, so they've been willing to spend the money up till now, but it's continuing to go up, and they're not seeing a value return for that. And so that's where we're starting to see more and more of these companies start pulling back on their token utilization and bringing things in-house. We talked about this with Cisco in a previous video. Cisco is building in-house AI systems. And one of the reasons they're building in-house AI systems is so they can control cost. At least if they have an internal system, they know what the hell's going on. So it's interesting here with Palantir's CARP coming out, swinging at OpenAI and Anthropic, because it is just bringing up the concept of their pricing model suck. Remember, in the technology world, there's a difference between the product and the business. You could theoretically have a good product, but if you don't run your business well, it's not going to matter. We go down and take a look at this. Palantir's CEO Alex Karp on Wednesday criticized the token model used by US AI labs Anthropic and OpenAI as costs skyrocket. Quote, I'm not throwing shade at them, he says as he throws shade at them. But something has gone completely wrong, he told CNBC's Squawk Box. Quote, the basic view among enterprises in this country is I'm going to chillax and waste my time with tokens. As AI costs surge and new models prove pricier than previous iterations, enterprises are shifting from a mindset of so-called token maxing in favor of a return on investment. Oh my golly, expecting an ROI out of artificial intelligence? Wow, that is cutting edge right there. That setup is prompting some enterprises to adopt open weight models capable of performing similar tasks at a fraction of the price. Chinese models are also accelerating capabilities, raising concerns that the AI rival could soon catch up to U.S. frontier labs. This is something that I'm hearing from the U.S. world. Again, it's weird how countries can be fighting each other, while like the citizens of the country really don't care, right? The leadership of our country, the glorious leadership of our country, has told us that China man is bad and that Chinese technology is scary. And then, geeks, as I've said many times before, are gonna do what geeks are gonna do. And here's the thing: if you're building a startup company and you have so much investment, in your company, and that's your runway, right? As soon as you run out of that investment money, and if you can't get any more, you're gonna plow into the trees. Well, here's the thing: if you need AI components for your startup company, and DeepSeek is 5 times less expensive than OpenAI, and again, you have a limited budget, whose services are you going to purchase? You're probably going to be purchasing a DeepSeek, which is, again, kind of ironic in the modern world. Karp told CNBC that the industry should not underestimate the speed at which China is making progress in building AI models. In this environment, many businesses are also shifting from using far-reaching AI models to building and training their own, more efficient proprietary tools. Earlier this week, Palantir announced an expanded partnership with NVIDIA to use a chip-making giant's AI tools to build custom models for U.S. government agencies. This is one of the things I think is going to get interesting as all the friends of this kumbaya AI moment, they start essentially stabbing each other in the back. So think about this, right? OpenAI has purchased a tremendous number of NVIDIA GPUs, Anthropic, all these companies purchase all of these NVIDIA GPUs. What's really interesting though, and it hasn't flown under the radar, but it doesn't get talked about nearly as much as I think it should get talked about. But you do know NVIDIA is releasing their own models. NVIDIA is releasing their own open source models that anybody can use. Because here's the thing, NVIDIA makes money when people buy GPUs. The more people that want to run models, the more demand there's going to be for the GPUs. And so that's one of the reasons that NVIDIA is pushing this stuff out. And so if NVIDIA and Palantir are working together for US government agencies to create their own models, right? This becomes a more viable path for large organizations to go down, right? If you are, oh, I don't know, a large company in the world. You're the Patagonia of the world. I think is a large company. You're Ford, right? If you're Ford, do you really want to use OpenAI's model or Anthropic's model, or would you rather use your own custom model to specifically do the tasks that you actually care about? So Palantir and NVIDIA coming together to help government agencies create their own models, again, becomes a very, very interesting thing in the AI world. Karp views open weight models as a potential solution for CEOs frustrated by AI labs. Quote, what aligns me with NVIDIA, and I think is what the technical customers want, which is control over their compute, their models, their data stack, and their alpha, Karp said. Quote, they want to know they own the means of productions. It's not being transferred to someone else. So there you go. There you go. Karp coming out, swinging some fists. And Dario and Sam Altman saying there's gotta be a better way to do artificial intelligence. And I gotta say, he's right. He's right. There's a better way to do whatever the hell it is that we're currently doing right now. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of the day. This is one of the things I talk about with the AI tech stack being very immature, right? When we talk in the technology world, when we talk about tech stacks, there's mature tech stacks and immature tech stacks. So web app, like if you're going to create a web app, you're going to create a new Uber or Grubhub or Netflix or whatever. That's called a mature tech stack. We know how to do it. Whether or not you succeed, that's you'll figure that one out. But you know how to build your systems. You know how to build your platforms, right? Immature tech stacks are things like quantum computers, right? Quantum computers is a very immature tech stack. They're not really quite sure what it'll do. It's really cool. Once they figure it out, it will change the world. Just give them a few more years to figure it out. But AI is an incredibly immature tech stack, right? How should these systems be built, right? What are the standard operating procedures for integrating artificial intelligence into your organization, right? So much of this is brand new. So much of this is currently being worked out. It will be figured out in time. It simply hasn't been figured out right now. And so what's really interesting here is you have companies like OpenAI, right? You have Sam Altman, who literally wants intelligence to be a utility, right? The concept is, his idea is intelligence as a utility. So anybody who wants intelligence services within their systems, they will connect to OpenAI and then they'll pay the token fee, right? That is one of the arguments for OpenAI being worth $1 trillion. But here's the thing. This is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. 4 years ago, you could argue 4 years ago, it made sense within like the hardware environment, right? In order to get the hardware, in order to get the software and all that kind of stuff to run an AI stack, you needed to have these very massive, very expensive data centers. But by the day, the cost for doing that kind of thing is crashing. And so you run into the world where Sam Altman's view of the future is simply not where the future is going, right? I think about this with Back to the Future 2, right? I was a kid when Back to the Future 2 came out. I remember Back to the Future. I was 8 years old when Back to the Future came out. Anyways, right? And there's the funny line of it's 2020 or whatever the year was. It's 2020. We didn't get flying cars, but we got all of the world's information in a little device that goes into our pocket, right? Back to the Future, like the future that Back to the Future envisioned, simply doesn't exist, right? They envisioned all the food being dehydrated and then being reconstituted in weird microwave looking oven things. They didn't envision Grubhub, right? They did envision flying cars. They didn't envision Lyft. Right. And that's one of the important things to understand about when you have visionaries seeing the future is that sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're wrong because of hubris. Sometimes they're wrong because they're missing information. And sometimes they're wrong because that's just not the way the future went. And I think that's what we're seeing with OpenAI and kind of the disaster that Sam Altman is dealing with right now is that the future does not look like what he was predicting. And so you have Karp coming out and basically bitch smacking Dario and Sam Altman, explaining why their businesses are not particularly good businesses right now. However good the technology is. You may say the technology is amazing, but doesn't necessarily mean the business is. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Palantir's CEO coming out and bitch smacking OpenAI and Anthropic? What do you think about this with this whole argument where the token costs are just going through the roof, especially now with the reasoning models? So before it used to be a request. So when you looked at token utilization, it was a request goes in, the response goes out. Token count for those two things, that's what you paid for. Now, then you came up with reasoning models. So request goes in, a whole bunch of reasoning happens, builds up token cost, then the response comes out. All of that comes now as the token cost. Now we have agents. Agents are technically like running basically off of cron jobs every minute, every 5 minutes, whatever they fire off. So now they're automatically making requests, doing reasoning, getting back a response, doing something based off of that response, pulling more information. Right? Do you think that's a viable business model? Do you think that's a viable cost for so many organizations to actually be able to accept? Especially in a world where they still don't know what the ROI of any of this crap is going to be. Oh, put your comments down below. If you like these videos, do remember they're on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Link is down below. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, there's a link down there too. With that, see y'all later.